Hello everyone. So in this video, let us talk about how to capture the requirements, especially Jira changes or tickets that you receive from your users for modifications to your automations or scripts, or maybe it is just those simple trivial activities or support tickets. Now, when it comes to capturing requirements in Jira, I think I have made several videos on my channel where I have shared ideas, and I have of course mentioned that do what really works for you when it comes to capturing the requirements, initial requirements. When you're starting out with your implementation, it could be an Excel sheet, it could be a document, it could be a conference page. I mean, do what works for you, right? So usually, personally, I prefer an Excel sheet, because when it comes to Excel sheets are organized. You can create separate tabs for different configurations, but Excel sheet may not always be super readable. So you always have to figure out the best approach based on your situation, your organization, your team. Sometimes you need to create a mix of everything. Like maybe you want to start with a Confluence or a Word document for brainstorming. Then you might need to create PPTs to showcase your solution or whatever you're doing with Jira to your stakeholders or management. But when it comes to actual technical specifications, like what fields, what data types, what automations, the workflow, you can of course just maintain it within your Excel sheets. This is about, of course, capturing new requirements. But what about changes? What about after 2 months, when you're up and running, people are trying to change something? How do you capture it? Now, of course, if you have done a lot of requirement gathering for a big, important, critical process, then you may want to, keep a different version of that particular document, or you may want to keep on updating that particular document with new changes, right? So this is, of course, a challenge. So in this video, I thought I'll probably share a few things. Number one, first of all, if we talk about trivial tickets, giving some user permission, or creating a project, or maybe changing simple things in your Jira configuration. Maybe you want to receive a ticket where the user can ask you to create a project specific workflow, like detach their workflow, right? So there are so many things that are basically, I'm not saying it is simple or difficult, but things where you can actually use script runner. And of course, script runner will be different when it comes to Jira Cloud. But I'm talking about current capabilities for both Jira Data Center and Cloud. Of course, there are few things that you can do easily on Jira Data Center, which you might not be do easily on Jira Cloud. You'll have to find a REST API equivalent of Jira Java APIs. But whenever it comes to doing simple things, where you have an API, you have some REST endpoint, you can consider to automate it. And when I say automated, I'm saying you can do some kind of a self-service where people can raise a ticket and you capture the information, like relevant information that you can pass on to your script, and you execute a script, right? It could be as simple as doing simple project creation. Now, when you create a project in Jira, you just need to know what schemes you need to apply, and when you're doing it using a script, of course you can do it using script runner, you can do it using APIs, REST APIs, but you can in your ticket you can share a link to maybe your 10 standard templates, and it is up to the user to take a look at it. So that is one approach, like doing a self-service model where you capture the information in the ticket and then you execute the script. Of course, you can have approval mechanism where you only do this when the ticket is approved, right? And especially in a big company like corporates, you need to do these things, because otherwise you will end up spending a lot of time doing trivial things manually. But when it comes to changes to existing processes, existing projects, existing automations, unfortunately, it is really difficult to not only create that initial document, but it is actually even more difficult to keep it up to date. It's a pain. It's a very big problem. Now, depending upon the company you're working for, if you're working for a company where things are a bit relaxed, no one is really shouting, people are not always complaining about bad support, nothing is super urgent, you can try to follow the process. You can try not to do ad hoc work. You can try to, of course, receive the ticket, and I'll of course talk about how to capture the information in the ticket. But let us say you have a ticket, then you update the document, you create a different version of it, or maybe you to keep track of those changes somewhere, that yes, this is the change that we did, and this change is related to this ticket. And then you do the change, maybe on staging, then you ask the user for approval, and then you do it on production, right? So you can follow like this proper change control process, especially in those cases where the company or the processes or the environment is a bit relaxed. You can't do that in a typical company where in most companies, I think, especially in IT, people are always looking for things to get done quickly and straight away. But of course, as a Jira admin, as a Jira consultant, as someone who is controlling or trying to keep Jira instance clean, and of course you want to make sure that you're not really doing things on the fly, you still need to follow a process. But I would say my advice is, I know I've talked a lot in this video, my advice is that have a ticket for those changes. Try to keep the information on the ticket as much as you can, because Jira ticket is one place where you can always come back. And when it comes to a ticket, if you have a link to a Confluence page which is outside, or a link to a SharePoint or a Google document, you cannot really say for sure that this change was captured in this document, because these are two totally different things. And when you receive a ticket, especially when it comes to changes, try to have tickets, or I should say, your tickets should capture the information or requirement, and that format, I'll talk about the format. I've not forgotten about it. So you should try to have a ticket which is granular, or basically I should say you should have granular changes as much as you can. I mean, of course, I'm not really saying that create a ticket for adding 10 tickets for 10 different fields, right? Basically, your ticket should be small enough so that you can trace back to that change, that request after 6 months, but it should not be big enough, because if your ticket is big enough, you are actually spending all the time, like 6 months. I know it happens, right? Sometimes you will have a ticket that is probably open for 6 months. Sometimes you will have a ticket that is probably open for 3 months, and you're basically doing a lot of work. Your Jira support, your Jira changes should not be for proper development. If you want to do proper development, then it should, I mean, in most cases, when it comes to using Jira, implementing Jira, in most cases, I mean, not always, I don't really think it will take more than maybe 1 month, 2 months, right? I mean, if you're spending like 3 months or 6 months, then it is not really the right approach. And I don't really see any reason why you need maybe 6 months. Of course, it depends on how many teams you're, like I'm talking about one implementation. For example, if you're working for a very big company or a corporate, they have like 100,000 employees, and maybe you are working for a team of 1,000 people. Now for them, of course, their processes are really important. You may spend maybe a month or two to do the implementation in Jira, but in most cases you will never be doing Jira implementations for a single team, for a single project, for example, for 6 months. So the same is applicable for the changes. If you're doing a change, then it should be small enough. I think in almost all the cases, your changes, your ticket should not be big enough so that it is, your changes should not cross 1 month. I mean, that could be maybe one criteria. And when it comes to your template or a requirement that you want to capture, I think you should not worry too much about creating a template for those changes in Jira. When you ask the user to raise a ticket, just ask them to just capture bare minimum information. Let them fill in details in the description, because it should be easy for them. If you're asking them to fill up a very big form, then they will get annoyed. And I've seen in a lot of implementations where they ask user to fill up like 25 fields, and there are certain fields that trigger another 5 fields, and yet they keep on having discussion on the comments. I think you should try to keep it simple. Let the user describe and explain in the description box, right, the description field, what they want, and then have a discussion with them on maybe your comments. If you think that description is too big of a requirement, then of course you can create subtasks, but try to break it down wherever applicable. And in most cases, you would need to talk to them. That is actually part of our job. So when it comes to Jira consultation, you cannot just rely on a tool. Like you cannot just have a ticket where the user, the stakeholder, they have explained the requirements and you're implementing it. You should always talk to them. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to, I mean, if you get a chance to talk to them, then there are plenty of benefits. I think I've mentioned this in a lot of my videos, especially for you as a Jira admin. If you're a Jira admin and all you're doing is just creating workflows and fields and configurations in Jira, then it is not the right thing. You should always get into consultation. You should always learn how to understand the requirements. You should get into a bit of a BA role. Of course, BA is a separate profile, but you know Jira, you know how it works, you know how to customize it, you know how to configure it. When you talk to people, you can actually convince them like a bit more easily. In fact, it is easy to convince them on a call instead of just fighting on a Slack channel or Jira comments. So always try and look for the opportunities where you can just talk to your stakeholders. Not always. I mean, you don't really need to talk to them all the time, but whenever you get a chance, you should. So basically, what I'm saying is to capture those changes, to receive a ticket where you can understand what needs to be done, like changes or only changes. There is no right or wrong way. Try to keep it simple. Let users fill up a simple description field, and if you have further questions, simply use comments. And whenever you get a chance or whenever you have some doubt, get on a call. All right, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.